Making smarter electronic submissions, because holy crap, it matters. Pencil in hand with, oh yeah, well, there's no question. Well, this is one of my general things that's going to actually happen on the YouTube channel and going to be governed by some of the content that I do versus 10 years ago or 12 years ago. Is we love the fact that we don't, I made jokes going into the 21st century about, we're going to save a lot of trees and beavers. Yay. And we all like the idea of not having to print pictures, etc. But still, what are you paying for? What are you really paying for? There's, the whole electronic firewall process of digital technology has made a lot of things better, and in my opinion, a lot of things more challenging. And I think it's fair to say that there's, again, it's an appropriate word, not being inappropriate. It has become almost a masturbatory routine in terms of us just being, hamsters on the wheel, doing electronic submissions, not only for the extremely legit projects, but also the others, because I am one of those guys who will always, it's where I come from for the most part with regards to the business of show business. I come from the place of, what if you were them? What if you're on the other side? I do that in life, and I do it with this. In life, it's not just actors that are narcissistic. In life, we are very self-centered. We're very self-focused, and or the immediate around us we have to protect, be it spouses, kids, whatever. But we rarely spend time thinking about sitting in that chair. It's again, some of the things that are the greatest in life are just the most simple. There's a simple old cartoon with two pictures, and and it's just the bartender and the customer perspective. And since I grew up in the restaurant business, it's extraordinarily accurate, and it applies here with electronic submissions in terms of what Will just said. And that's Will Roberts. Y'all make sure you follow Film Festival Live and watch the show when it's on. And Paul Jackson's here, who's going to be doing showbiz scenarios with me on Friday, which is going to be sick, crazy fun. So we're going to bring up a couple of actor scenarios, and I'm going to coach through on them. Y'all got to come on Friday and watch that. I'm going to do it with Will next week at some point. But in terms of the two cartoons, it's a picture of what the customer's perspective is and what the bartender's perspective is. And the customer's perspective is the bartender's just sitting behind the bar with a towel thrown over his shoulder, just sitting there chilling, cleaning a glass. And the bartender's perspective is mayhem. It's 6 rows deep of people screaming at him for a drink. And it's accurate about how life goes. We don't commonly think about the other side. And when it's come to now the electronic submission, which really came into focus, it started-ish 2000, 2001, but it really became in focus and a part of our culture. Listen, they were still doing Polaroids at commercial auditions. No shit. They were still doing Polaroids, commercial auditions in 2003 and 4. I was laughing my ass off. Still, it took to about 2005 or 2006 when we finally had enough of the mechanisms in place. And since then, to Will's point, easy 3,000 to 5,000 submissions a roll, and they aren't getting to them. You know they aren't. Hey, Rachel, good to see you. Thanks for coming in. They're not getting to those. Again, I used to count on the fact that prior to the pandemic, yes, it may take me 4 or 5 auditions now for a show to book one, which it didn't used to do back in the day. But the truth of the matter is that now, one of the things about reading for Castle for the 6th time or whatever it was, the truth of the matter is I only had to read with 6 to 8 or 12 people there for the guest star audition. And now, to Will's point, because of electronic submissions and because of the simplicity of it, I guarantee you they're having to sift through, to whatever degree they do, not only the 2,000 or 3,000 submissions, but how many tapes are they going to watch? Honestly, How many tapes are they going to watch? Yes, Will. I'm going to do the best I can, Will. I'll screw this up, but I'll try to pin my URL. Oh boy, here we go. Sorry, guys. I'm going to dive into electronic submissions. Will is yelling at me, which he commonly does, to put my damn... Oh, see, I can't type. I have really big fingers, bro. I suck at this. Okay. Post. Okay. Okay. Hey, there it is. Look at that, Will. I did it. Stop yelling at me. All right, making smarter electronic submissions. Here we go. Let's break it down, people. Rock and load. Call your friends. Get them in here now because this is going to be good. Okay, so the bottom line is electronic submission, as we all know, is simply a breakdown. It doesn't matter where it is. It doesn't matter how it occurs. And if you go macro on this, you can use this not just for electronic submissions, but you can also use it anytime you find out about a project, anywhere, anyhow, any place. There's a chapter in my book that actually says, holy smokes, Virginia, Kingston. Mara, yay. We got folks, we got people. It doesn't matter what the breakdown is. There's a chapter in my book, which is right there. Y'all can get it at kevinewest.com. That I call qualifying a lead. I say it all the time. Our challenge with the business is that I don't think we equate it enough to just the stuff we do in life. The business of show business is analogous and metaphorically hinged to what we do in life. Qualifying a lead is exactly how you make electronic submissions better. But I'm going to ask you guys, you can reply, you don't have to admit to it, it's cool. But typically, whether you're seeing the legitimate breakdowns that the agents and managers get, whether you're looking at a breakdown on Actors Access, Casting Frontier, Casting Networks, eTalenta in Europe, I don't give a shit. I don't care. My question to everybody, if I surveyed everyone, and if you were really honest, when you first glance at a breakdown, what's the first thing you go to? Where do your eyes get drawn to? That's the first thing. And what most of us would have to admit to, with all respect, and I get it, again, no judgment, we tend to go immediately to the roles available because we want to see if there's something we're right for. I totally understand it. And I doubt sincerely that me sitting here is going to change that reality for you. Okay, cool. Fine. You jump straight down to the roles available. But what I'd like to see more of us begin to do is stop. Stop for a moment. And you have to consider two really important things. Now, you may do this in some way on your own-ish. I want you to become hyper-focused about doing it as an artistic business person, okay? And that is, think about your standing in the business wherever you are. Doesn't matter if you're in Minneapolis, Nashville, or outer London. I don't care. What is your genuine, honest status in the business based on your credits and your history? And what does that project look like in terms of its status? And what I mean by that, of course, is I mean its clout. Now, I have to use the United States, even though we have people that are here because I've spoken all over the world. I have to use the United States as a benchmark. But in this country, in film and television on breakdowns or commercials, union v. non-union, principal, not background, when you look at electronic submissions for film and television, the first thing you have to determine is, if it's television, is it a standard show or is it a new media agreement? And if it's film, is it scale, minimum scale, and or is it a form of modified agreement? That's the first thing you have to extrapolate out in your qualification to start being smarter about how you do this, because they're not the same, y'all. I know we want to look at a lead or a supporting or just a role in something, and we want to call the artistic actor part of me fulfilling that role the same, but it's not. I mean, look at this face, people. Well, the hair's got a lot of shit going on today, but look at this face. I played a bad guy, like a really bad guy on daytime television. You really think I would have played I'm sorry, I should have said a heavy bad guy, and I'm not talking about weight. Thanks for the joke that you're thinking. What if I played a real heavy on The Sopranos? No, I might have played a smart, intelligent sniper hitman, but not a heavy. That's my point. When you look at the project, you have to look at the clout behind it. Is it a scale and above thing with stars attached? Even if it's in a low budget, does it have a name attached, but it's still low budget? Ultra low budget, modified low budget in between. And if you start getting down to SPA, short project agreement, and also micro budget, this is something you have to consider. And then go back and look at the roles. Because, and especially if it's a student project, look at your standing and ask yourself, what is the likelihood? Logic. I'm sorry, I apologize, I'm a Pisces, but you got to put some logic into this. What is the logic or likelihood that I will get called in for this based on me and based on them? Not the role, your standing and their standing. Because, like Will said, I mean, we're spending money on this stuff, guys, and they're not watching a lot of this stuff. So when you want to make smart electronic submissions, you want to try to really pay. We don't even read sometimes the story or the description they give, because this is why I go through a whole thing that you'll see on YouTube with all my content about what is your real type in contemporary film and television today. Are you really, not just how you look, but are you really more white collar or blue collar? There are just roles that in written form you look like you're right for, but you're not as right for as you think you are. And there's some you think you're not right for that you're more right for. But a lot of that based on your submissions, based on your amount of time, based on your amount of money. There's a lot of those things that you may want to be a little more hypersensitive about what you choose to submit for and what you don't choose to submit for. And man, is it hard for us to say no. This is, oh no, the pencil is down. That's okay. It's like a guitar pick. I always got one nearby. You always, hey Don, you always want to make sure that you're giving yourself a little bit of latitude of what I call wish stuff. Hey, Sarah and Z, welcome in. Yes, make 10% of your submissions a little bit of it's above my pay grade. Absolutely. I'm never, ever, ever trying to kill anyone's dream. What I'm always trying to do, what I've been trying to do since 1991, is help you increase the likelihood of legitimate actor activity that leads to your success. Period. Full stop. Always. And this is the issue with electronic submissions is you don't have somebody on your shoulder popping up going, ding, dude, don't submit for that. You're wasting your time. Ding, bro, that's completely what you're down. We don't have anyone doing that. We're left to be our own masters of our destiny, and they're just making millions in the process. And a lot of the stuff sometimes won't get looked at. So I really want you to make sure that you start paying attention to what type of cloud it looks like it has and where you honestly stand, along with, and that goes to, and Will knows this because I give him shit about it all the time, is first thing I want you to start looking at is what type of contract is it? It's the absolute first thing I want you to notice in a breakdown from now on. Obviously, depending on your status, this is not the conversation for union versus non-union. But is it union or non-union? By the way, if you're non-union, you can submit to union projects. That's not your problem. They can hire you if they want to, especially if it's in a right to work state. They don't have to pay a penalty for it. But this is my concern is we're not paying close enough attention to the type of contract and what level of clout. We get levels, you know. Most go to 10. This goes to 11. Sorry, Spinal Tap reference. We'll be okay. You got to look at the level, y'all, and then look at your level. And if you've done a bunch of co-stars in television, then look at the TV show and look at what network it's on. There's a massive difference in a show like This Is Us on NBC if you've got a lot of co-stars and you want to submit, again, analogously, for a guest star on that show when it's a network show that's top in the country versus another television distribution outlet such as FX or someplace else, where maybe you can get away with it. And there's a reality to that, and especially with film. Most of our electronic submissions are typically for all of these film projects that people are doing. And yes, we all want them to go to film festivals. We all want them to be successful. And what I want for you is I want you to get auditions for larger roles. What's the problem, Will? That's what I want. But what I mostly want you to do is when you choose to submit and spend your money and risk those dollars and send in an audition, I want you to actually have a shot at that role. I don't want 80% or 75% of your submissions to be, I still believe in a place called Hope. No, I want you to be able to draw a little closer distinction to the fact that if you were sitting in their chair, based on the description, based on you, based on your status, and based on the clout, I want you, if you were them, to look at you and go, yeah, let's get them to read for us. That's what I want. Will is the let's sling it up against the barn and see what sticks. Yes, Will, I would agree with you to the degree when you are the person who's choosing to pay $125 to get it all. Totally feel you, totally hear you. So let me make two comments about that because, and you guys should know this. If you don't know me, you should know this. Bye, Virginia. You should know this. I'm all about perspective. I'm also always about intelligent discourse with regards to thoughts. Will, totally get it. Will has gone to the buffet in that he's paying a certain amount of money to have carte blanche. And so therefore, I don't disagree if you have a chance to sling everything you can against the barn. Totally get it, Will, and I'm with you. However, and there's the however is not yeah, but, it's however. I still want, even if that's the case, because I don't think most actors probably spend that amount of money a month. I think you would be in the lower percentage. I know was paying, I got it, but I got to use what you brought up as the example. I think that probably maybe 10 or 15% of actors would go down the road of coughing up and committing to $125 a month, and therefore you sling and you sling and you sling. That's cool. But I still want, from an education standpoint and from a filter standpoint and from a where are you trying to get standpoint, building a career standpoint, I still would want people to understand there's a way to be discerning even if, it's like a Don Henley song, even if, anyway, even if you have the latitude in your situation to be able to sling and not worry about paying for each individual one when it's not a la carte. Totally get it. But I still want to get into folks' head about how they build and how they spend the time they have, because we're all limited on time, going after projects. And this is why I said at the very top of the show, I said, it doesn't matter to me if you find out about a breakdown from a friend at a coffee shop. Maybe a representative told you, maybe a friend in acting class told you. I'm discussing making smarter electronic submissions as a title to an action that we all go through. And a lot of what it is picking apart a breakdown to start being a little more discerning with how you see information. I make a Matrix joke all the time at the very end of the Matrix when he finally sees the agents for what they really are, just a series of numbers. You're through the looking glass of what's really the truth. I want you to start viewing a breakdown and giving more considerations to the elements that surround the production, not just the description of the role. Because you'll eventually find on YouTube in all the videos I'm going to do that I actually have an entire thing, because it's in my book, about how you really discern your real type based on one's medium, which I made the joke about being a heavy bad guy on Daytime and probably not so much on The Sopranos. So that's part of where I'm coming from is we want to, and it, again, Will, you know this, it also helps us learn what I want, which is learn the contracts. Understand what it is you're submitting for. Please don't submit and not know what you've submitted for. This is one of the first questions I ask anybody when I do a private, when I ask them about their actor activity. I always ask, well, what was it for? because you wouldn't go in for a job interview and not know what you're not going in for. But actors do it all the time. Please know what you're submitting for based on its contract, because that helps determine not the absolute fact. I mean, guys, this is a subjective profession. Kevin, no one's ever going to be able to tell you, well, you're absolutely going to get called in for that. Bullshit. Anybody that tells you that is lying to your face. There's no way to determine that. I've read for stuff where I looked at myself and went, you called me in for that? Really? Listen, guys, I got hired on NCIS and my character's name was Mario. Let's just start there. And they didn't even change it. I thought, well, maybe they had it as Mario. And hey, Rachel, you're more than welcome. Have a great day. If you hired me for Mario, okay, but maybe change it to Brian. I don't know. I got hired as a Dante on Judging Amy. I mean, I'm just saying. You could have maybe gone with Tim, but the point being is, we don't know what they know. We don't know what's on their mind. And so it's helpful to not just always have a sling attitude, even if you have sling money. I like the fact you brought that up, Will. It's why I love you. It's a good wrinkle for me to have to address. You may have sling money, but those kinds of things can, not you, I'm not speaking to you now, Will, those things can create, since you're a golfer, bad habits. And this is what I want us as a community, as a profession, globally, to get away from, is just having the broad stroke, everything's the same mentality. That's my concern, because we all know the truth of the matter is it's not true. There are lots of levels to this profession. Yes, it is a profession unlike major sports where you can jump from being a nobody to being a star. Absolutely. 100%. All for it. Clearly, I'd be all for it. But the process along the way, the steps, the actual working of this, taking time to do these actions, is going to serve you better if you put some degree of filtering and intelligence behind it with regards to the projects. Way back in the day, this was what I did at the Actors Network, which was understanding production charts. Because back then in Variety and Hollywood Reporter, they'd put all of the production going on in a production chart. They'd have development, pre-production, production. And I spent hours and hours talking to actors about how to understand those listings better. It's the same thing as electronic submissions and breakdowns, guys. Excellent. Excellent, Mara. That's outstanding. Bitcoin mining. Right on. Yay. Great to have you here. Love it. Only 5 minutes to go, but glad you're here. So I used to always, my man D. Anderson's in, I used to always talk about that. You have to consider what the baseline of a project is, because put yourself in the executive producer or the director's position. No matter how big or small the project, you're always wanting to try to get somebody with either the highest skill level or the highest visibility level. And yes, I would agree 1,000,000,000%. The smaller the project, sometimes large, but not very often, the smaller the project, if you have 200,000 followers on Instagram or someplace else, then yes, in today's world, for a smaller project and somebody is equally talented, you ask yourself, if you're the producer, you're probably going to hire the person who has a naturally larger social media following. That becomes a whole rabbit hole in this conversation. It's a different subject, but I'm just sharing with you, like any job listing, any classified ad for a job, we would be looking at the scope of things. And unfortunately, in my opinion, from what I've seen in my 3+ decades, we tend to, because we're emotional animals, we tend to jump straight to what are the roles, what am I right for, what do I look like I'm right for? Submit, click, 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 click. I get it. I'm just asking you today to begin to look at how you would go about being slightly more specific, slightly more narrow, slightly more geared to how I'd go about making an electronic submission. And let's say, I'm going to use your example again. Let's say you wanted to trim down 15% from just being able to sling everything you want. Let's say you had to. What would be the factors that would help you go about doing it? And most of them would be related to what's the overall visual, the overall clout, the overall picture of the production and the contract, not necessarily the role in a description that I, as a 5'10" white male at my age, looks like I'm right for while reading. And that's my main point about making it, we're discerning sometimes when we go to the grocery store, we're discerning when we buy clothes, we're discerning when we get an apartment, a car, a house, we're discerning about a ton of stuff. But because this is art, and because we're left to the ability to click anything we want, and because mostly, and this is why I'm going to build the greatest business of show business library that the world has ever seen on YouTube, go there and subscribe to me. If that wasn't the case, then the reality is this is why we're the most undereducated profession in the world, because there is no high school, there is no university all the way up to Ivy League who covers this stuff, because they don't have somebody to cover it. So, as I like to say, as we reach the close, guys, trust me on the sunscreen. Spend some time looking at more of what is at the top of the breakdown. The type of contract, the clout, the people involved. Put yourself in their position. Television, the producer, film, the director. Look at your own self. Where do I stand? And then look at the roles and submit accordingly, because part of that is emotional and psychological of the hope, because we all want return on investment. We all want return on time put in, because it's not a time and money out business, and we don't get paid for making these efforts. Unfortunately, these days, we are the ones paying. So this is part because overall, my goal and desire is to protect, as it always has been, to protect your fuel tank. This fuel tank for even wanting to do this shit, this fuel tank for how you feel based on what we have to do as an instrument, and what gets sent down to our gut that sits with us too much, okay? So that's how, in a really short span, because I could do this for like 3 hours, that's a short version of how to make your electronic submissions smarter. All right, guys, we'll be here on Friday with Showbiz Scenarios, doing a little engagement, dynamic engagement with my man, Paul Jackson. Thanks for being here. You guys have a stunning couple of days. Thanks for being here. I am Seacrest out. Enjoy the rest of your day. All right, y'all. See you soon. Peace and chicken grease. Whee!